Welcome to today's video. They were once shining child stars, familiar faces on screen who brought joy and inspiration to millions. But one day, they suddenly disappeared. Without a trace, without explanation. Their stories were forgotten, and the mysteries surrounding their disappearances remain unsolved. Did Hollywood deliberately erase them from public memory? Or is there a darker truth still hidden? In today's video, we'll uncover the mysterious vanishings of black child stars and search for answers to the questions that have long gone unanswered. Let's dive in and uncover the truth. Danielle Spencer. A lifetime haunted by tragedy. In 1977, Danielle Spencer's life took a devastating turn after a horrific accident that would forever change her fate. At just 11 years old, she was riding in a car with her stepfather, unaware that the next moment would alter everything. The vehicle lost control, flipped multiple times, and crashed violently. Danielle was knocked unconscious on impact and fell into a coma for 3 weeks. When she finally woke up in the hospital, the first words she managed to whisper were, "Where's Dad?" But her mother's tearful silence told her everything she needed to know. Her stepfather had given his life to shield her, absorbing the full force of the crash to protect the little girl he loved. Yet, the nightmare didn't end there. The accident left Danielle with severe physical trauma, lingering injuries that would follow her for the rest of her life. Though she continued her acting career and became beloved for her role as Dee Thomas in What's Happening, the bright lights of Hollywood couldn't mask the pain she endured daily. Over the years, her old injuries resurfaced, worsening until they robbed her of her ability to walk, leaving her paralyzed for 8 long months. Once an energetic child who ran freely, she was now confined, unable to move, forced to watch life pass her by, without being able to fully participate. It was as if fate refused to let her escape the grasp of misfortune. As if fate hadn't already tested her enough, in 2018, Danielle was dealt yet another cruel blow: breast cancer. Once again, she found herself locked in a battle for survival, but this time against a relentless disease. The grueling treatments, the exhausting chemotherapy sessions, the never-ending pain, and the emotional toll, it all became a part of her daily existence. She had always been strong, always found a way to push through, but no one could endure endless suffering without feeling utterly drained. Danielle never asked to be a fighter. Life had simply given her no choice. From a promising child star to a symbol of resilience, Danielle Spencer's journey has been one of constant struggle. But the cost of her strength has been unimaginably high. If she had never stepped into Hollywood, would her life have been different? If that terrible accident had never happened, could she have avoided the relentless tragedies that followed? No one can ever truly know. What remains undeniable is that, no matter how cruel fate has been, Danielle has never allowed it to break her. Even when her body failed her, her spirit never did. Kevin Hooks, the talented child star, and the mysterious illness. Kevin Hooks was once considered one of Hollywood's brightest young talents, captivating audiences with his powerful performance in Sounder, 1972. With his natural charisma and undeniable acting ability, many believed he was destined for a long and illustrious career in front of the camera. But just as his star was beginning to rise, he suddenly disappeared from the spotlight without any explanation. No scandals, no public fallout, just an abrupt and puzzling absence that left fans and industry insiders alike wondering, what happened to Kevin Hooks? What few people knew at the time was that Hooks was silently battling a rare neurological disorder that caused his body to betray him in ways he could never predict. Some mornings, he would wake up and find that his arms were too weak to lift. Other days, his entire body would tremble uncontrollably, making even the simplest movements difficult. Determined to keep his condition a secret, Hooks pushed through, giving his best performances while struggling against an illness that refused to let him be. But eventually, no amount of willpower could hide the truth. His body was changing, and the camera would catch what he could no longer control. Rather than letting the world witness his decline, Hooks made a quiet and deliberate exit from acting. There were no press conferences, no emotional goodbyes, just a slow fading from public view. He retreated behind the scenes, choosing instead to direct, where he could still tell powerful stories without the physical toll of performing. Behind the camera, he found a renewed sense of purpose, shaping narratives without the burden of having to mask his pain. But despite his success as a director, his departure from acting remains one of Hollywood's great untold stories. Looking back, one can't help but wonder, if Hooks had never fallen ill, would he have become one of the greatest actors of his generation? Or was his true calling always meant to be behind the camera, influencing the industry in ways we never expected? While his career took an unexpected turn, Kevin Hooks remains a testament to resilience and reinvention. What do you think? Was his path changed by fate? Or did he find exactly where he was meant to be? Todd Bridges, the child star who fell into the abyss of crime and addiction. Todd Bridges was once one of America's most beloved child stars, best known for his role as Willis Jackson on Different Strokes, 1978. With his bright smile and natural acting talent, he quickly became a household name. But the spotlight didn't last forever. When the show ended, Todd found himself lost, unemployed, and directionless. Hollywood had once embraced him, but when it no longer needed him, it turned its back. A boy who had been adored by millions was now left to navigate a world that no longer had a place for him. Does early fame set child stars up for failure? Feeling hopeless, Todd Bridges turned to drugs as an escape. But what initially numbed his pain soon consumed him entirely. His arrests started piling up: drug possession, DUIs, assault. At his lowest point, he was charged with attempted murder during a botched drug deal. The image of the sweet, innocent Willis from TV was replaced by mugshots and tabloid headlines. The public, who once cheered for him, now saw him as just another fallen star. But did anyone ever ask, who helped push him to the edge? Between court appearances and rehab stints, it seemed unlikely that Todd Bridges would ever find a way out of his downward spiral. But after nearly dying from a drug overdose, he made a decision. He had to turn his life around. He embarked on the difficult journey of sobriety, determined to reclaim what he had lost. Yet even after getting clean, he faced an unforgiving reality. Hollywood had no interest in redemption stories. The roles he once dreamed of were out of reach. Can society ever truly forgive those who seek a second chance? Or are they forever trapped by their past? Todd Bridges' story is not just his own. It's a reflection of how the entertainment industry treats child stars. Hollywood exploits them for their talent, drains them dry, and discards them when they're no longer useful. Bridges was one of the lucky few who managed to break free from the cycle of addiction and self-destruction. But how many others weren't as fortunate? And more importantly, how many more tragedies will it take before real change happens? Jamie Foxworth, the dark fall of a forgotten child star. In the late 1980s, Jamie Foxworth was a familiar face to American audiences, playing Judy Winslow in the hit sitcom Family Matters, 8/9 to 1993. With her radiant smile and natural acting talent, she became a cherished part of millions of childhoods. But just as she was beginning to build her career, Hollywood mercilessly shut the door in her face, leaving a young girl stranded in the ruthless entertainment industry. After 4 seasons, Family Matters abruptly wrote Judy Winslow out of the show without a single explanation. The producers chose to shift the spotlight entirely to Steve Urkel, whose character was rapidly gaining popularity. And in that decision, Judy was erased without a trace. No farewell scene, no mention, she simply vanished. One week, she was a beloved member of the Winslow family. The next, it was as if she had never existed. Can you imagine the pain of being erased from your own story? At just 14 years old, Jamie Foxworth was cast aside without hesitation. She struggled to find new roles, but Hollywood had already moved on. As acting opportunities disappeared, her family faced financial hardship and was forced to dip into Jamie's $500,000 trust fund just to survive. But even that money didn't last long. Backed into a corner, Jamie spiraled into addiction, seeking refuge in drugs. And when every door seemed to close, she made a heartbreaking decision: stepping into the adult film industry. What drives a once promising young actress to such a desperate path? On the set of her first adult film, Jamie broke down in tears. But instead of sympathy, she was met with ridicule, scolded for being unprofessional. When the media uncovered her story, the public was stunned. The sweet girl from Family Matters was now the subject of judgment and cruel mockery. Yet, even in her darkest moments, Jamie found the strength to reclaim her life. She fought to overcome addiction, left the adult industry behind, and started anew. In 2009, she gave birth to her first child, vowing never to return to her past. But one question remains. If Hollywood hadn't so cruelly discarded a 14-year-old girl, would Jamie Foxworth's life have taken such a tragic turn? Shavar Ross. The heartbreaking secret behind his innocent smile. Shavar Ross was once a familiar face on television, capturing audiences' hearts with his role as Dudley Ramsey in the beloved sitcom Different Strokes, 1880 to 1886. With his radiant smile and bright eyes, he quickly became one of the most cherished child stars of the 1980s. But behind the cheerful image was a painful secret he never dared to reveal. Beneath the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, Ross carried a haunting truth, one that would follow him for the rest of his life. Did anyone ever truly see the pain hidden behind the laughter on screen? One of the most shocking episodes of Different Strokes featured Dudley being abused by a child predator, a storyline that left America stunned. The episode was groundbreaking, sparking nationwide conversations about child exploitation. But there was a devastating reality that no one, neither the crew nor the audience, knew. Shavar Ross wasn't acting. The fear in his eyes, the panic in his voice, it wasn't just scripted, it was real. From a young age, Ross had been a victim of abuse at the hands of a family member. The trauma he relived in that scene wasn't fictional, it was a painful memory resurfacing. When filming ended, the crew applauded his performance, praising his raw emotion. But not a single person asked him if he was okay. It makes one wonder, how many other child actors have endured similar pain in silence, forced to hide their trauma behind a scripted smile? When Different Strokes ended, Shavar Ross slowly faded from Hollywood. No new roles, no industry support, just silence. Like so many former child stars, He was abandoned by an industry that only values the next rising face. But instead of succumbing to the same dark paths that claimed so many of his peers, drugs, self-destruction, scandal, Ross chose a different road. He walked away from the spotlight and turned to faith, seeking solace in religion to heal the wounds that Hollywood never acknowledged. He became a pastor, using his voice not for entertainment, but for spiritual guidance. But can faith truly erase the scars of his past? Or is it merely a refuge from the pain he never escaped? Even after leaving the entertainment world, Ross's traumatic memories continued to haunt him. There were nights when he stood alone in a quiet church, whispering prayers, searching for peace. Yet, deep down, one question lingered in his mind, refusing to fade. If God was always watching over me, why didn't He protect me when I was just a child? Perhaps this is a question not only Ross, but countless others who have suffered in silence still ask themselves every day. What do you think? Is there meaning behind such suffering? Or is it simply the cruel randomness of fate? Christoph Street. John, a brilliant star, and the tragic fall into darkness. Christoph Street. John was destined for greatness from an early age. Entering Hollywood at just 10 years old, he quickly proved himself to be a rare and exceptional talent. His portrayal of young Alex Haley in Roots, The Next Generations, 1979, established him as a rising star, and his unforgettable role as Neil Winters on The Young and the Restless cemented his place as a television icon. With his deep, soulful performances and magnetic presence, Christoph became a beloved figure in the industry. But behind the success and acclaim, life had prepared a cruel and merciless fate for him. How does one continue to shine when the weight of sorrow becomes unbearable? In 2014, while reading a script for his next scene, Christoph received the devastating news that would change his life forever. His eldest son, Julian St. John, had taken his own life in a psychiatric hospital at the age of 24 after battling years of depression. The tragedy shattered Christoph in ways no one could fully comprehend. A father's worst nightmare had become his reality, and from that moment on, the vibrant, charismatic man that audiences adored began to fade away. The grief was insurmountable, and Christoph found himself spiraling down a path of self-destruction. How does a parent survive after losing a child? Is there any way to truly heal from such profound loss? The once energetic and passionate actor became a shadow of himself, drowning in alcohol in a desperate attempt to numb the pain. Friends noticed the change immediately. Christoph was no longer the man they once knew. He would spend hours parked outside the cemetery where Julian was buried, whispering as if he were speaking to his son. The loneliness consumed him, and at times he expressed his despair through haunting messages. One of his closest friends received a text from him that read, "I don't know how much longer I can go on like this." It was a cry for help, but could anyone have saved him from the darkness that had already taken hold? Then, on February 3, 2019, Christoph St. John was found dead in his home, surrounded by empty bottles of alcohol. The official cause of death was heart failure exacerbated by years of alcohol abuse. From the dazzling lights of Hollywood to the lonely silence of his final days, Christoph's journey was one of immense talent, profound love, and devastating loss. His departure left a void in the hearts of those who admired him, and his tragic story serves as a reminder of how grief, when left unchecked, can consume even the strongest souls. Do you believe that fame and success can ever truly shield someone from life's deepest sorrows? Or does tragedy spare no one, no matter how bright their light once shined? Gary Coleman, The tragic fall of Hollywood's richest child star. At the height of his fame, Gary Coleman was Hollywood's highest-paid child actor, charming millions as Arnold Jackson in Different Strokes. With his signature catchphrase, infectious energy, and undeniable talent, he became a household name. Yet, as the bright lights of stardom faded, so did his career, leaving him to navigate a world that had moved on without him. How does a beloved child star go from riches to ruin in just a few short years? Despite earning a staggering $18 million during his time on Different Strokes, Gary found himself nearly penniless as an adult. Betrayed by his adoptive parents and financial advisors, his fortune was drained without his knowledge. By the time he realized the extent of their deception, it was too late. His once lavish earnings were gone. With no major roles coming his way, Gary was forced to take on menial jobs, including working as a security guard at a shopping mall. Imagine once being the face of primetime television, only to find yourself asking shoppers for their receipts. How does someone endure such a cruel twist of fate? At night, in the solitude of his small apartment, Gary would reportedly watch reruns of Different Strokes, revisiting the days when he was a fatal brain hemorrhage. His life, once filled with promise and laughter, ended in quiet tragedy. As fans mourned his loss, many were left wondering, did Hollywood fail Gary Coleman, or was he simply another casualty of an industry that devours its youngest stars? Ralph Carter, the forgotten child star Hollywood left behind, without a second thought. In the 1970s, Ralph Carter was one of the most recognizable faces on American television, portraying Michael Evans in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. His character was a bright, passionate young boy who stood up for social justice, a symbol of black youth during a turbulent era. With his natural, heartfelt performance, Ralph won the love of audiences and was expected to have a long and promising career in Hollywood. But when Good Times ended, so did Hollywood's interest in him. What led to the downfall of such a talented young actor? Determined to continue acting, Ralph Carter auditioned relentlessly, hoping for a role that would prove he was more than just Michael Evans. But each time, casting directors barely looked at him before saying, "You still think you're Michael Evans? Hollywood has moved on." Those words hit like a hammer, crushing any hope of a fresh start. No matter how skilled he was, he couldn't escape the shadow of his childhood character. Faded from the public's memory. Hollywood didn't blacklist him, they simply stopped caring. And in an industry as ruthless as this one, indifference is often worse than punishment. How many more child stars will walk the same painful path Ralph Carter once did? Kim Fields. The cost of a bold decision. Kim Fields was one of the brightest stars of the 1980s, best known for her role as Tootie Ramsey on The Facts of Life, 1979 to 1988. At the peak of her career, she made a shocking decision. She walked away from Hollywood to attend college. To her, this wasn't just a detour, it was a statement. She didn't want to be trapped in the image of a child star forever. She believed that when she returned, she would be more mature, stronger, and, most importantly, recognized for her talent rather than just her past. But does Hollywood have the patience to wait for someone? Or does its relentless cycle leave behind those who take too long to come back? When Kim Fields returned to the industry, she quickly realized a harsh truth. Hollywood had moved on, and she was no longer its top choice. The doors that once opened so easily were now shut. Auditions ended in disappointment, and the producers who once praised her now barely remembered her. She was no longer the familiar face they wanted, no longer the adorable child star audiences adored. Walking out of yet another failed audition, she couldn't help but wonder, does talent really matter? Or does Hollywood only care about what's fresh and trendy? Refusing to give up, Kim shifted her focus to directing and producing, determined to take control of her own career. But stepping behind the camera, she faced an even tougher reality: gender and racial bias. During an important meeting, as she passionately pitched her ideas, a male producer leaned in close and whispered, "Do you know how Hollywood works? If you want to succeed, you have to learn to play by the rules." Disgusted, she pulled away, shocked by his audacity. But when she looked into his eyes, she understood. Hollywood was no place for a black woman who dared to challenge the system. Can someone truly succeed in this industry without making compromises? Despite her relentless efforts, Kim Fields never reclaimed the spotlight she once had. No one explicitly banned her from Hollywood, but no one gave her opportunities either. And so, she faded into obscurity, a punishment far crueler than rejection. Looking back, does Kim regret her bold decision? Or does she stand proud, knowing she chose a path not many have the courage to take? Emmanuel Lewis. The silent battle against an invisible pain. Emmanuel Lewis was a familiar face in the 1980s, captivating audiences with his role in the sitcom Webster. His charm, wit, and undeniable talent made him a household name. But when the show ended in 1989, something unexpected happened. He disappeared from Hollywood. No farewell tour, no major comeback attempts, just silence. Fans were left wondering, what happened to the boy who once lit up our screens? The truth was far more painful than anyone realized. Emmanuel suffered from a rare growth disorder that kept his body permanently childlike. But the condition didn't just affect his height. It came with a host of medical complications that he quietly battled behind closed doors. As his peers in the industry grew up and moved on to new roles, he found himself trapped in a body that would never change, facing limitations few could understand. In an industry obsessed with reinvention, could he ever find a way to be seen as anything more than Webster? On one of his rare public appearances, Emmanuel collapsed on stage without warning. Gasps filled the room as people rushed to his aid. And yet, as he was helped to his feet, he still managed to smile and wave to the audience as if nothing had happened. But behind that smile was a heartbreaking truth. His body was growing weaker, the pain becoming harder to ignore. Even in that moment, he refused to let the world see his suffering. How often do we assume that a smile means someone is truly okay? Rather than let Hollywood watch him decline, Emmanuel made a choice to step away, to leave behind the image of Webster frozen in time. He wanted to be remembered as the bright, lovable boy who once brought joy to millions, not as a man struggling against an illness he could never escape. But as the years passed, one question lingered. Was his decision to disappear an act of self-preservation, or did the world simply forget him when he was no longer the same? Thank you for watching and joining us in revisiting the highs and lows of stars who once shined brightly. Hollywood is glamorous, but also ruthless. When the spotlight fades, too many talents are forgotten. They deserve to be remembered, not just for their roles, but for their resilience behind the scenes. Which story affected you the most? Is Hollywood to blame? Share your thoughts, like, subscribe, and stay with us as we uncover more untold stories behind the fame. See you in the next video.